Welcome to Hannah's Heart.
So Hannah, she's just one of the women who did struggle with infertility in the Bible.
No matter who we are, we can be inspired by the fact that Hannah took her pain to God, and God heard her and was with her.
So when she was praying at the temple, she had been weeping and not eating, and her lips were moving, but her eyes were closed, and the priest was like, "Hey, why are you drunk at the temple?"
It can become an obsession when you want a child so deeply.
And desiring that baby and to be a mama. Every holiday, every Mother's Day.
This is not a show that's going to promise you a certain outcome, but this is a show that says, however God answers your cry, we know that He's enough.
Hey, I'm Ann.
And I'm Kendra, and you're listening to Hannah's Heart on American Family Radio. If you were listening in the intro, our show is titled after Hannah in the Bible, who prayed and prayed and prayed and struggled with infertility, and the Lord ended up giving her a little boy named Samuel.
Yeah.
And of course, she had to turn him over back to the Lord. And that's what we talk about on the show, how sometimes your life doesn't look like the picture that you initially thought it would be. But when you surrender and really lay things in God's hands, it's amazing how He will complete your story. Of course, we talk about infertility, we talk about miscarriage, we talk about child loss, we talk about fertility treatments, adoption, fostering.
So many different things.
So many different topics. Yeah. And through it all, Christ is enough, and He is our cornerstone. He is our rock. That's what Hannah says, that God was her rock, and we're here to encourage you, whatever your journey and your story looks like.
That's right. When we want to walk with you through it. Right. So today, our guest has parts of those things that you were just talking about. She's a calling guest. I've never met her personally, but I feel like I know her now from following her on social media. I'm sure you listeners have people like that too. You feel like you get to know their family and their children and all that, and you're like, I want to know what y'all did for a birthday party, because you get invested in these people's lives that are willing to share their lives and share those vulnerable moments, and she is definitely one that will do that. And so we have Bekka Clayton on today to share about her sweet family, and I'm excited to have you on, Bekka.
Thank you guys so much for welcoming me here.
Yeah.
I want to say that your intro is just so beautiful. All the things you touched on, like I'm already holding back the tears. It's a beautiful space you guys have created.
Well, we're honored to have you. And I love, Ann tells me you are a doula. And I think you're our first doula on the show.
Right? Oh, she might be.
I think so.
I haven't even thought about that. I know.
But, and your story covers one of the topics of child loss. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that you're a part of the club that everybody's welcome, but we hate that you have to be a member.
Yes, the worst club with the best members.
Yes,
that's right.
That's say, yeah.
That's very, very true. That is, I'm sure the algorithm helped me somehow, but after my son passed away in 2023, something led me to your page about your sweet baby who passed away way too soon. And so, you definitely didn't even realize it, but you were offering me hope and kind of just leading me through some of the worst, most awful days. But seeing you, I don't know, still be able to joke and have fun, but also like realize like how terrible this is, you know. I don't know, it was definitely part of my healing journey that I'm definitely still on, but so I had to have you on, and I have to tell you thank you for doing that too, because that's a hard space to be in, sharing such tough moments.
Thank you for saying that. It was definitely something that I had to kind of figure out, because, you know, there's a lot of people on social media who talk strictly about infertility or pregnancy loss or infant loss, and it just seems like that's all they share, right? Because that's your important message. So it almost feels like that's what's consuming their life. And I recognize that, and I was like, that can't be me. I want to share about this for and I'm sure their lives go on too. You just don't see it on social media because they've tailored what they share. But I was like, I have to share that, life is okay after this, because I need my life to be okay after this. So thank you for recognizing that and for seeing that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, just get into your story. Who are you? Yeah. And you just get into telling your story of why you're here today.
Okay, well, I am a mama of 3 living boys. We live in Florida. I am a birth doula. That's kind of new, though. That's kind of been like the most recent turn in this journey that I've been on. And it honestly was all started by my son, Miles, who passed away when I was 19 weeks pregnant. My husband and I, we got married in 2014 and had our first baby in 2016. And if I'm being honest, it was a rough transition into motherhood. It was so hard. And he had colic. He was a difficult baby. I was like, oh no, we've messed up. This is not for us. We are so bad at this. So it took us a while to decide whether or not we wanted to have more babies, because I was like, there's a good chance we walk through every single hard part all over again, and it's just as hard the second time. So he was almost 3, I think, when we decided we wanted to have another baby. And, we just started trying, and I thought it would happen a little bit faster the second time, and it didn't. And I was like, stuck in, which I'm sure you and all of your audience knows about, like that trying to conceive, that TTC cycle, that roller coaster of like, okay, we're going to get pregnant this month. Oh my gosh, we're not pregnant. Okay, next month. Oh wait, we're not pregnant. And it's just over and over. And it took us over a year of trying for our second baby. And I remember thinking, like, if this isn't going to happen for us, because it seems so hopeless at that point. It's been so long. You're like, okay, it's never going to happen. I was like, why has God put this desire on my heart? Like, why did he have me work through all of my hesitations at having a second baby to arrive at the place where, like, I know I want a second baby, only for it not to be in his plan for me? Like, what is he doing? What is happening? And in that time frame, he also led my husband and me back to church, which I'm sure was all part of the design of that rough period. And, there were so many messages about surrendering parts of your life to God and like letting go of control so that God can unravel his plan. And my husband was like, hey, don't you think that was kind of speaking to us? Like, maybe we should like kind of calm down with, trying so hard or like agonizing over this. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, that's not what he's saying to me. There's no way.
You heard him wrong.
And I did. Yeah. Well, I kept thinking of Hannah specifically. It's just one of my favorite stories, because it was like, there was nothing sinful about her, like, agonizing, wanting that baby. Like, this is good and this is holy for women to want babies. So I was like, I'm going to just keep wanting this baby so hard. And we finally got pregnant in February of 2020, right before everything got super weird in the world.
Oh,
and
goodness,
it was like,
oh wow, bless you.
And it was like, oh, finally. And actually, right before that, when I hit like that 12 months of trying, I almost felt relieved, because I was like, okay, at 12 months, they officially label you as like quote unquote infertile.
Yeah, it's kind of like you finally made it.
Fertility clinic.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly
They'll
how I
listen
felt.
to you all of a sudden.
In fact, yeah, it's like someone else will help me now. Like, there's credibility to my struggle here, and I was so relieved. And so we did start. I got an appointment at a maternal fetal medicine clinic, and, they were like, oh, make sure you bring your husband. And I was kind of shocked, because I think right around that time, clinics were starting to say, please limit the number of people you bring with you. And I was like, wait, he can come too? And they were like, well, yeah, he's like part of the process. So we went through like the onboarding, all like the questions, and trying to decide what was going to be the right route. And they were like, all right, we're just going to wait, for your period to arrive. So we'll start on the first day of your cycle with different tests and stuff. And my period never came, and I took a test, and I was pregnant. And I was like, oh my God,
God's timing.
I didn't do anything.
It's like, I got you, Bekka. I got you.
Just like ironic.
That's crazy.
And so I kind of thought like it would be just like that breath of relief. Like, we made it. You're pregnant. That means you're bringing home a baby. We're going to have a baby. There wasn't any question or doubt, or at least I didn't think there would be. But my pregnancy, almost from the beginning, was just riddled with like anxiety and feelings of disbelief and feelings of like, this isn't real. And on more than one occasion, I said that out loud to like my best friend at the time, my sisters. I was like, this doesn't feel real. And it wasn't just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It was like, I have doubts that this is real. And they all kind of were reassuring, saying, it's because you've wanted it for so long. Your brain is just taking a while to like catch up because you've been stuck in that period of waiting for so long. And I allowed myself to believe them. I went for, because I was in the MFM clinic, they were like, well, since you're already one of our patients, we'll like run your HCG levels and then we'll run them again in 24 hours. And they were doing the right things. They had doubled. And I was like, yes, okay, I'm really pregnant. And then they were like, let's get you in with an OB nice and early. We'll get an ultrasound for like checking for, the fetal pole and all these things. And everything looked good. And then they were like, now you can just start with your regular OB care. And I went for an ultrasound, I think at like 10 weeks. And they were like, there's your baby. There's a heartbeat. And again, I was like, oh my gosh, I thought for sure I was going to walk into that appointment and they were going to tell me something like, your brain has just convinced you that you're pregnant and your body is following along, but like your womb is empty. There's nothing in there. You've imagined this. I thought they were going to tell me that. I was so sure that that's what I was walking into. I even like wrote a blog post about it, just being like, this anxiety in this pregnancy is wild and it was unexpected because my first pregnancy was picture perfect. And I saw the baby, saw the heartbeat, measurements were perfect. I was like, all right, I'm going to make, my announcement on social media and like tell my family because this is real. And everything like on paper was so normal because my husband couldn't go to our appointments anymore. Like he could with the maternal fetal medicine, but not with the OB because of the COVID lockdowns. A friend of mine gifted me a fetal Doppler. And so I taught myself how to use a fetal Doppler. Yeah, so we could hear the heartbeat, and he could hear it at home. And my son, who was 3 at the time, could hear it. He loved it. He was like, it's like a helicopter. So that was like a fun thing we did every few days. I didn't really have any reservations about using the Doppler. And I just had told myself, like, all right, if I ever can't find the heartbeat, it's probably user error. It's not on me, I'm pregnant. And I was still having these feelings of just deep anxiety. Like now I describe them as feelings of deep grief, but at the time it was just anxiety. I was Googling things like, what does it feel like when your baby dies in your belly? What does a miscarriage look like? And I couldn't explain why. I just had these curiosities and it's like, I kind of need to know. And one of my actual Google searches was, will I know if my baby dies inside of me? And it talked about pain and cramping and blood and like maybe if you have a traumatic accident. And I was like, okay, well, none of that has happened. So I'm sure this is all in my head. I asked my sisters too. I have 3 sisters. They're all mothers. And I was like, guys, like, what is actually wrong with me? Something is wrong with me. And they were like, it's your hormones, your life is kind of wild right now. And one of them even said, like, your life looks so perfect right now. Like, you have a great house, you have a good job, you're stable, you're having your second and like what we thought was our last baby. She was like, your life is just coming to like this culmination of perfection and bliss and you're fighting it. So you need to just like let that go and be like, no, my life really is this good. And we really do have so many blessings and just settle in that. And I was like, okay, no, you're right. And then, at the time I was also, again, I wouldn't have known how to describe them at the time, but now I look back and I'm like, well, they were visions. I was having these visions of like people around me, like dark shadowy figures in my peripheral vision. I would turn and expect to see my husband there or my child and be like, oh my gosh, no one's here. I'm alone. And I even asked my sisters about that. I was like, guys, I'm seeing things, like something's up. And my sister's like, no, it's your hormones. Pregnancy does weird things to your body. And that started in like, let's say March, April, and into May. It was Memorial Day weekend. And my husband and I had been doing some yard work. And then he went inside and I sat outside and I just felt the pressure of all of these like weird things and these intrusive thoughts and this anxiety. And I sat down on our back patio and I wrapped my arms around like my little bump that I had. And I just sobbed and cried and poured my heart out to God. And I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I can't do this. I need you to take this from me. I need you to give me peace. Like I need you to tell me that everything is okay. And in my head, that song, It Is Well With My Soul, came into my mind.
Wow.
And it says, when sorrows like sea billows roll, when peace like a river, like all these phrases. And the history of that song is that the gentleman who wrote it kind of wrote it in the midst of his own grief. His whole family was lost at sea. I think before that, his infant son had just died. And like, there was just so much loss in his life. And he wrote that song. And I just sat there like thinking about that. And I was like, I don't know what this means or what this is for, but it just like overwhelmed me in that moment. And then I went back to work. That was like on like the holiday Monday. Wednesday, I was in my office at work and I was wearing this little shirt that really like wrapped around my belly. And like everyone knew I was pregnant at that time. I was, I guess, 4 months along. And a coworker was like, "Oh my gosh, your belly is so cute." And I rubbed it and I was like, "Thank you. It just keeps growing and growing." And again, this really loud voice was like, "You just lied to her because your belly stopped growing last week."
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was just flooded. I was flooded with these feelings of like dread. And again, telling my sisters, telling my husband, telling my best friend, and they were all like, "Look, if you're worried, like go to your doctor, go get checked." And I was like, "No, because if I admit something is wrong and I walk in, it makes it real. And I can't do that. Like, it's fine. I'm fine. We're fine." Until that Friday, or I guess like Thursday night, I tried to use the Doppler, couldn't find a heartbeat. And I was like, "I'm sure it's fine." I hadn't felt as much movement as I had been feeling, but there were still like little movements. And I was like, "It's fine." Like just totally gaslighting myself into like ignoring all of these signs and these intuitions that I had. And so Friday, I was like, "You know what? I can't do this. If nothing else, like I want meds for anxiety. Like just numb me out for the rest of this because this is so deep and so hard. I can't do this." And I called the doctor's office. And I do not know what or why, but she was so resistant to like letting me have an appointment. The girl who answered the phone, and I even told her, I was like, I'm just worried something's wrong." And she's like, "I'm sure it's fine." And I was like, "Well, I can't find his heartbeat on the fetal Doppler." And she's like, "Well, you're not a professional. You don't know how to use it." I was like, "Okay. Well, I can't feel any movement." She's like, "Oh, we don't recommend count the kicks until you're over 21 weeks. So I'm sure that's fine too." And I finally had to get really snippy with her. I was like, "I don't know what you want me to say, but I can't do this. And I need help. And like, if you can't help me, I don't know what to do." And she like huffed and sighed. And she's like, "Well, we have to bill your insurance. It's going to be a whole thing. This isn't like a quick pop in. Like you have to schedule an appointment." And I was like, I know, like she fought me so hard, finally got me an appointment. And I was so sure that I was going in to hear like, "Oh my gosh, you're crazy. You should relax a little. Everything is fine." That I left all my stuff at the office. I left my lunchbox full of food. And I go to the clinic and my husband said, "Do you want me to come with you?" And I said no, because he couldn't come in anyway. I had to wear a mask. I had to go alone. And I went into one room and the nurse is like, "Oh my gosh, this happens all the time. Moms are just so anxious these days. It's happened to my daughter." Like she's just chatting. And inside I'm like dying because I'm like, I already know that this is not going to end well. Like the feelings are just overwhelming me. It's like, I know what's happening here. And she tried to use the Doppler. She's like, "I can't find his heartbeat, but you know what? He's probably just tucked away too far." Like she just kept explaining away everything that she was experiencing with me. Then she tried to get a handheld sonogram machine. And she's like, "Well, I see him. He's in there." She's trying to jiggle my belly, trying to make him move. She's like talking to him in a really like upbeat voice. And I'm just, tears are just like streaming down my face. And I've never been grateful for those masks they made us wear, but I was like, at least this mask is like hiding half of my face and catching these tears that are just like soaking the top of this mask. And then she's like, "All right, well, we're going to get you a full scan, but don't worry about it. I'm sure it's fine." And now I'm like, all she was doing was lying to me because she didn't know how to tell me the truth.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I had to go back to the waiting room. And that's when I texted my husband. I was like, "Hey, no news is good news," thinking that would like reassure him that I was fine. He told me that that's when he got in his truck and started driving to the clinic where I was. And they hooked up the ultrasound machine, and immediately I saw on the screen that my baby was just completely still, kind of curled around the bottom of the screen, I guess like the bottom of my uterus, just like motionless. Usually they're jumping and flickering, and there was just nothing. And immediately a doctor walked in behind me as I laid down, and he stood there and pointed at things on the screen and spoke to the sonogram, the sonographer, and didn't say anything to me. And they're just kind of looking and mentioning things. And I finally had to say to them, is it dead?
Oh.
Is my baby dead? And he just like sighed and said, I'm so sorry, we should be seeing cardiac activity, but we're not. And even still today, I'm like, he never definitively told me whether or not my baby had died. He simply said he wasn't seeing the cardiac activity, right? Maybe he wasn't looking in the right place. Like my brain was trying to find like where he was the one making the error. And it just was like the whole world went like numb and black. And like I know that anybody who's experienced it, who's been in that room, when they've heard those words, like they know exactly what I'm talking about. Your world just like falls away from you. And, I was like, all right, well, I gotta go. Like, I'm sure I was, crying and sobbing. Actually, I said to them, I knew this was going to happen. I just knew it. And he got really concerned, and he leaned in close, and he's like, how did you know, sweetie? How did you know this would happen? And I was like, I just knew we wouldn't keep this baby. And he patted my shoulder. He was like, all right, can we call someone for you? And I was like, no, I'm going home. Thank you. Goodbye. So I got up. I like wiped the jelly off of my stomach, and I was like, I'm leaving. I have to get out of here. And I went in the hallway, kind of immediately had a panic attack. And there was this pregnant mom, and like the vision of her has never left my brain. We were walking opposite directions in the hallway, and like, I just started sobbing and like hyperventilating, and like sat down against the wall. She like held her stomach and like shimmied around me to get to the other side to get out, and I think about her all the time, like how scared I must have made her with the way I was acting. And then that same nurse from the beginning is like, hey, let's get you in this exam room. Come on, let me call your husband. And she kept insisting, I'm going to call your husband. I have to call him. And I was like, absolutely not. The only thing I could think about in that moment is how much I didn't want him to hear over the phone that his baby had passed away. And so eventually, like, I try to call him because like, I can't stand up. I can't see anything. And I can't feel my phone. Like, my fingers aren't working. And she's like, let me do it for you. But I was already mad at her because I felt like she'd lied to me at the beginning of that appointment. I was like, I want to be with anybody but you right now. And so she calls my husband, stammers something to him, and I can hear him on the other line. He's like, what? And I was like, just give me the phone. So I take the phone, and again, I'm sobbing. I can barely get words out. And he's like, I'm on my way. It doesn't matter. I'm on my way. And so he gets off the phone. I call my best friend, and I told her all of the things that I just told you guys, like sitting on the porch and that song coming to me, and like that interaction with my coworker in the office. And I was like, everything, but it's like it pointed to this. Like this was like played out right in front of me, So my husband got there, and his side of the story is like, he said he was already on the way, first of all, before I even called him because of my text message. That was really weird. He had no idea what they were even saying, and he couldn't tell what I was trying to say. And so the great blessing in there is that he didn't actually know that his child had passed away until he walked into the room with me. So as much as I didn't want him to hear that over the phone, he actually didn't, because he couldn't understand what we were trying to say.
Wow.
And so he's like, I walked in there, and I'm like, where is my wife? And they're like, I'm sorry, sir, you can't be here. And he was like, I do not care. And he just like stormed into the back and like was pushing past the nurses who were like, sir, you can't be in here without a mask on. He's like, I did not care.
No.
And so he comes in, the same doctor, came back, and because I was like, can you get that doctor back in here? I don't know what he was saying. I don't know how to tell him what's happened. So the doctor came in and was like, we're going to make an appointment for you guys at labor and delivery. You can go in for an induction. And they actually offered me an induction, a DNC, which is like a surgical removal, or they also offered me a C-section.
Bekka, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, especially considering all you've been through. But that is the end of our first program. But here's the thing. God doesn't waste pain. We're going to have you back on for another episode. We're going to talk about how everything you went through, even though God didn't cause it, it wasn't in his plan, God has helped you to find healing and then to start being able to minister to others through that, like Anne. For those of you that are listening, that are hearing this story, let me just say this. The Holy Spirit speaks to us as women. There is a still small voice that the world may make you think that you're crazy, but sometimes it's women's intuition. Sometimes it's the Holy Spirit. Lean into that and trust that God does speak to you. And we're going to hear the rest of this story in a part 2, so you guys hang in there.
That's right. Thanks for listening today on Hannah's Heart.